Hey everybody, it's Johnny C, co-host of Indie Comics Relay and producer of Surrounded by Death. We're coming at you again with another 5 questions video, this time with my good friends at Wayward Raven, Mark and Alex, who have a brand new anthology on Kickstarter running right now in its final days called We Suck at Comics, which I'm actually also in, but we don't suck at comics. But you know what? Let Mark and Alex tell you a little bit more about it with our 5 questions. So here we go.
How's it going? I'm Mark C. Frankel of Wayward Raven Media. We make comics, we make webcomics, we make prose, all sorts of fun stuff. I happen to be a writer and one of our creators here.
So, how did Wayward Raven come together and why concentrate on comics?
So, Wayward Raven came together about 10 years ago at New York Comic Con 2012. Mark and I just happened to, he'll probably tell you the story too, but we started working together on our day jobs, actually. He was a recruiter and I was an engineer, software engineer. And during our interview, we basically, I walk into the office and I see all these comic book posters in his office. And I kind of took a minute to think about, wait a second, am I in the right place? And we essentially talked most of the interview about comics. And after I did get the job, we would kind of hang out during lunch and we would just start riffing on ideas and just start joking around with the stuff we were reading, stuff we were watching on TV and movies. And then through conversation, he found out I was going to be at New York Comic Con as an attendee. And I found out that he was going to actually table for the first time with our third partner, Josh. Now, Josh and Mark had been friends for a while, but, I had just met Mark and then later I would meet Josh, but during our lunch break, we would talk comics, as I said, and a lot of the riffing eventually would become the things that would establish Damn Heroes, because we would start just all these ideas and, he found out I was an illustrator, I found out he was a writer, and that he would be at New York Comic Con. We decided, let's do some fun stuff together. As I said, that would become Damn Heroes. And when we first tabled, it was essentially 10 strips of Damn Heroes and 2 floppies from the old company, Aegis Pub, that Mark and Josh had come up with. And after that was a bit of a success, we realized comics are something we really love. And that's kind of when we wanted to focus on, because it was just something we had grown up on, and I personally, as an illustrator, was more interested in telling stories with visual medium, but we didn't have the budget and, honestly, the skill set to do anything other than videos. So we really just kind of fell into the whole. I fell into the comics thing with Mark that way. I had in the past tried to do some independent comic stuff too, but it didn't work out until we were able to kind of solidify under the Wayward Raven banner, so to say. But yeah, that's kind of how we fell in together to create Wayward Raven. There's probably more to the story, but that's probably a longer conversation.
So Wayward Raven came together over a period of time. I've been a writer for some time. One of our other partners, Josh, is also a writer. And he and I started out, we made stage plays. I did short stories. He did full-length novels, things like that. And so it made sense for us to kind of work together. We ended up working together on stage plays. However, we found that wasn't really quite the right medium for what we wanted to do. It's a little bit limited in some of the graphics, some of the things that you can actually make happen. I'm absolutely constantly amazed by what can be done with stage plays. But some of the sort of fantasy sci-fi sort of stuff we wanted to do, the medium wasn't quite perfect. And comics really seemed to be the right medium for that. So we started writing comics together, and you can actually see the evidence of that in one of our books, Horseman, which is a completed graphic novel at this point. But we started out really writing as issue by issue. We completed 5 issues, wrapped the whole series up, and put it into a graphic novel. But that was our first real experience publishing comics, and from there we've grown, we've done more, and we've started to really focus on other stories, and now even getting into other people's books and other people's stories. We just really happen to love the medium. We love the fact that there's so much you can do with it, and so it's a fun thing to do any given time, and it's a nice additional piece to what we write and what we like to bring to life.
What is We Suck at Comics, and why release this now?
We Suck at Comics was kind of a joke that we would tell each other every now and then, like whenever we did something dumb or made a mistake, or just honestly, it's like, whenever we were like, oh, we should have done this, or it should have done it this way, well, we suck. It was kind of an ongoing joke, between Mark and I. But where it came to the anthology specifically, I can't remember if we came up with a name first or the idea for an anthology about rejection, but it was, again, like a lot of our stuff just comes from riffing. And we we're just going back and forth. And then I believe I had said, we suck at comics. And we're like, wait, that's a good name. And then that kind of went from there. As for why releasing it now, I mean, this is like, we've been doing this for about 10 years. And we've been kind of talking about an anthology. But like, it seemed like in recent years, a lot of people have been putting out anthologies. And we had even tried contributing in a couple with mixed results. And that kind of fed into the idea of like, if we're going to do an anthology, we want to do something that stands apart. Instead of it just being some generic theme, we're like, let's do something about, once we came up with the idea of rejection, because we had so many things that were either rejected from other anthologies or just didn't hit right in an anthology, or even just things that we had tried pitching or creating that just fell flat. It was one of those weird kismet moments of like, it just made sense to do it now. And yeah, that's where it came from.
So We Suck at Comics is an anthology. We've been kicking around the idea of an anthology for a while now. We find, again, it kind of goes back to we want to help people. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've been pretty successful at putting stuff out and getting attention, getting a following. And so the idea for We Suck at Comics was twofold. One, we want to help other creators. And if you look in the anthology, you'll see a range of different people, from folks who've been doing this for quite some time to folks that this might be their first published story. So that's the first part. And the second part is, we like to have fun with things. We obviously are pretty tongue in cheek. A lot of kind of what we do is punny. Some of what we do is just outright satire, like our webcomic Damn Heroes. So that's a little about what it is. It's our opportunity to really give back, help others. And then why now? I think we've been thinking about it since the pandemic hit, not getting a chance to really get out to cons as much. It's nice to see all that stuff come back, and we love being able to do it. But this is something that's been in the making for a little bit. And frankly, now that the Kickstarter has funded, we're looking to probably do more versions, more volumes around various different themes. This particular one happens to be around rejection. However, the next one could be something totally different. And I think, again, it's just good timing for everything, quite frankly.
What are your individual stories in We Suck at Comics?
So my story for We Suck at Comics is called The Last Flight. It is kind of it's a sci-fi version of the story of the marathon. For people who might not know, the idea of like a marathon came from it's kind of a legend, I guess. I don't know how true some of this stuff was, but during the Battle of the 300, which everyone knows from 300 Spartans or whatever, the story goes that the battle took place at Marathon, and when there was a victory, a lone runner ran on foot from Marathon, Greece to Athens to announce to everyone, we won. In fact, he died, like, after saying, Nike, we won, just drops dead. And I like the idea of taking something from history or even legend and just trying to do a different spin on it. So in this one, it's kind of a little bit of a reverse in the sense that it's not the end of the war. It is basically the start. The idea I came up with is there's a guy who's the last survivor of an attack on this fleet in deep space, and he is as the last survivor. He's got to make it home as quickly as he can to let everyone know this attack happened. And the idea was it was originally going to be a pitch for a different anthology. The parameters were like an 8-page story that included their theme. And I can't remember the specifics of their theme, but the idea was I would write this script and my friend J.J. Barker would illustrate it. But things didn't line up for that anthology, and my intention was to just draw it myself and put it out as a one-shot. But when Mark and I came up with this anthology, Mark and I and Josh came up with this anthology, I was like, this is perfect. This kind of lines up with the whole rejection in the sense that this was something that was intended for another project and just fell through. So the idea is I've kind of tinkered a little bit with it to get it to fit in here, just, because since our anthology, I was like, let me add a little bit more to it, or just redo some of the panels. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing this in print finally.
My story in We Suck at Comics is actually How to Open the Gates of Hell, which was later reformatted in becoming How to Summon the Dark Lord Hyster for the Cthulhu is Hard to Spell anthology. If you pick it up, you can actually read on the first page the history behind how the story changed from How to Open the Gates of Hell to How to Summon the Dark Lord Hyster.
So my story in the anthology We Suck at Comics is called The Cycle. It's a 22-page comic. It's really around... well, first of all, it pulls in some pretty heavy mythological elements from Babylonian mythology. If you know some of that stuff, you'll probably recognize the characters. But then I took that mythology and I put it into a sci-fi context with the idea that the galaxy is collapsing in on itself. And they're the two folks that might be able to fix it. I won't give away the ending. I won't give away a whole lot about it, but I will simply say you can definitely see some of that mythological element, but then put forth into this sort of cosmic or science fiction sort of idea. And I think it merges some really fun themes.
Compiling a lot of short stories for an anthology is no small feat. How'd you go about choosing your selections for We Suck at Comics?
When we came up with the idea of an anthology about rejection, we thought it really would be amusing if we had to end up rejecting anybody. In fact, I had a friend who just pitched something stupid, and I was like, no, we're going to reject you. And in fact, we're going to put you in there saying we rejected you. But that was more of an inside joke, so we didn't end up doing it. But for the most part, the only thing we came close to rejecting were just some incomplete ideas. And we were like, that's not ready for this anthology. When we submitted, we had really requested that people give us completed things. And with very few exceptions, there were some things where they needed to be cleaned up. But the hardest part wasn't selecting things. It was making sure that the format worked, because a lot of people sent us things that they had pitched a while ago. So they had to find the original files, or I had to do some trickery to get like print-ready PDFs to be spliced up for this book, or more specifically, how to arrange things. Since for a lot of the way we're writing books, I'm the one who puts together the physical stuff for the printer. So for me, a lot of the decisions were around the order of things, and just to make sure the book flowed well. We have a lot of submissions that are either monochrome or varied lengths. Some submissions were full comic book floppy sizes, whereas others were like 3-page stories. We had a few prose short stories. So, the idea was to kind of make it so it's not like well, it's just this dense block of black and white, and then this dense block of color, and then words. So, it's to try to make sure that as you're flipping through the book, for people who are browsing at a con versus people who are actually consuming this thick book, that it wouldn't be just a boring read. We're splicing it up with like comedy, like we might have comedy come before something really serious, or something light in before something really heavy, and also to make sure that as you're flipping through it, it's not just shades of gray and then blasts of color. It kind of flows in well. So yeah, that's where a lot of the at least more of the decision making actually came from the book.
For starters, we've had folks reach out to us for some time. I mean, we've been around the con scene. People get to know us. We have folks come up with portfolios all the time, or even just ask if we're looking for work to publish. So we've kind of had that connection. And so that was part of it. We reached out to some of the folks that might have reached out to us in the past. We reached out to our network, even put some ads out there, calls for submissions. And then we saw what came in. And then, the theme around is, we said we wanted finished work. We wanted stuff that had been rejected or about rejection or whatever. And it was done with the idea that when we go to publish, we're not necessarily taking someone through the entire creative process, because that can take some time. We're not ruling out the idea to do that for future anthologies, but right now we had said we want finished work. So kind of the first thing that sometimes was the cutoff for some folks is if they didn't have it finished, they didn't expect to get it finished. We just don't really have the bandwidth for pairing writers and artists right now. So that was one of the things we looked at. And then quite frankly, we looked at things that we felt fit the theme, spoke to the anthology. I think we took a fairly liberal view on how the theme of rejection was fit, in part because we had so much really interesting content from so many really interesting different folks. We really wanted to be able to showcase a wide variety of different tales and from different backgrounds and things like that. So I think just really looking for some kind of diversity of thought and story was important to us.
And why should someone back We Suck at Comics?
I honestly think people should back We Suck at Comics if you're a fan of indie comics, because it doesn't get more indie than this. A lot of the people in this book, it's probably their first time publishing, or they've had a few successes, but all in the indie space. I can pretty much confidently say no one in the book has worked for one of the major publishers. We would love to, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this. But this is kind of one of those cases where if you support your local band, you support your local creators, you support your local artists, this is why you should back this anthology. We're all in this together, and it literally is a bunch of friends and new friends coming together to make comics. So I would really encourage anybody who's a fan of local comics, local or indie comics, back this.
Why should someone buy We Suck at Comics? That's an easy answer, because we've got over 25 different creators in it. We have 17 to 18 different stories, maybe even more when it's all said and done. We have probably close to 300 pages worth of story in one anthology for $25 at a buy the book. Purely just that alone, you're getting an amazing value. You're getting amazing stories. You're getting a wide array of different thought and art styles and all kinds of really fun stuff. And even more importantly, when you support us, you're not supporting Wayward Raven so much as you're supporting all the creators in that book. So our goal is to get the book printed for you, get it out there, and then hopefully take those proceeds, anything that's left over after we've recouped all those costs to make the book, share that with the creators. So in two things we're doing: one, we're getting people published, and two, we're getting people paid. And that's really what's important to us. We want to go out, support those folks in the book. We really want to be able to showcase their talents. And quite frankly, why wouldn't you want to do that?
And one more for fun. What are some of your favorite comic anthologies?
So I think for me, my favorite anthology has always been heavy metal. I probably was reading it way younger than I should have. Not because of the obvious subject matter, but there were a lot of very complex stories that kind of went over my head as a kid, but as an adult rereading them, and it's like, oh wow, there's some depth here. There's some really interesting views of existence and things. Like there were some specific ones that I probably could gush about for hours that really were formative to me in terms of like art style and even storytelling, just the way I think about things. Heavy metal is probably the biggest, my most cherished anthology that I've ever read.
Big thank you to Wayward Raven, Mark, and Alex for coming on and answering 5 questions. Don't forget to subscribe to Indie Comics Relay and tune in Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time when we go live. Hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching.